Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Deep Focus Show. My name's Clay, and we're joined here by two other guests that you've seen on this channel.
I'm
Hello,
Andrew.
I'm Tom.
Yeah, we've Andrew and I have talked about season six of Black Mirror. Now we're joined here with Tom, and we're going to be discussing season seven. I will say before I start, I think this is the best season since season four. The last two seasons have been a bit crunchy. What do you guys think?
In terms of like exact thoughts, I'm just trying to think. Like season four, I know had some really good episodes, but I also think it had some stinkers. Am I right in saying that? Yeah, I think I might like this season more than season four overall, but the best episode of season four is better than the best episode of season seven. I don't think it's like a massive difference though. I think Black Mirror since like season three has been this really frustratingly inconsistent show for me, where every season you're guaranteed to get at least one stinker, one pretty great episode, couple kind of mid, couple pretty good. You know, it's going to be like average out to a 6 or a 7 out of 10. And I don't think this season is any different there, but it's probably, I don't think any of these episodes are bad, which I think it's the first season I can say that about since season three.
Yeah, um, I would definitely echo the sentiments that it's better than the previous two, has more episodes as well, and probably a little bit more consistent quality than even those smaller ones there. I might have it over four, but like Tom, well, my favorite episode of the series, Hang the DJs in that one, so that's going to be hard to top for a
It's
peak.
my
But
second favorite episode. Yeah.
yeah, but I would say it's at least comparable to maybe season three and four, somewhere in that mix, which is really nice to have so far in. But there will be a spread to talk about once we get into it. So
Nice, nice. I will say my favorite episode of the series is San Junipero. Probably a basic favorite. Do you guys have a favorite aside from season seven before we get into it?
Yeah, Andrew said Hang the DJ, right? Is his favorite
yeah,
episode.
that's right.
Mm.
That's my second favorite. My favorite is White Christmas, which is also a pretty basic pick, and also like the only episode not technically attached to a season.
Oh, yeah.
uh, but yeah, classic.
Yeah, all great episodes. So,
Very much so, yeah. Andrew, you want to kick us off?
sure. So we'll start from the bottom. My least favorite episode of the season would be Bête Noire, story of Maria, this young woman who works like in research and development for chocolate. Old classmate who she had like a bad history with, works her way in. Strange things start happening, kind of like some gaslighting stuff going on without getting into how it fully ends. It definitely gets more extreme. Has some fun ideas. It's kind of like Mandela effect horror. Super neat having like the subtle variations on the Barney's Bernies. It's luck of the draw which version you end up seeing. Just very cool touch. Kind of reminds me a bit of the movie The Gift, if you've seen that. Protagonist, I think she's not really all that likable, even if she is kind of the victim in a sense. Nobody in the episode really is that likable. That's probably one of the more frustrating things about it for me as the viewer. There's not really anything to latch on to there. The explanation here at least kind of justifies why the secondary characters go along with what's going on. But probably my biggest issue is the ending. It's just goes very absurd and kind of threatens to be almost meaningless from what you watched. Would have liked maybe a hint more depth and humanity being explored there in both the primary characters. I think there was potential commentary that didn't need to be beaten over the head with, but I did want a bit more than we got, and maybe more of a recognition of what kind of character flaws we're seeing in them. If you've ever seen the movie Ruby Sparks, I think that's a great film that handles a similar kind of power a bit better. So I think it's the ending that really tanks it for me. It's not my least favorite episode of the series by any means, but it definitely was lacking a little bit in kind of the depth that I was looking for. So I gave that one a 2.5 out of 5.
I think that's fair. But I have a different bottom episode. So already some variants. My bottom episode is Plaything, which it hurts me to say because Peter Capaldi is one of my favorite British TV actors from the thick of it fame and Doctor Who as well, but more the thick of it for me. So to see he was in the cast for this season was really exciting, and then he was the main role in the episode, which is even more exciting. But I don't know, it just kind of feels like treading over ground we've already treaded on, which I think is something I can apply to a lot of episodes from this season. I did enjoy the sort of like manic conspiracy theory side to the character. I don't know. It never really feels all that believable, and not in terms of like the concept, but in terms of the actions of the characters, particularly the police officers around him. Like towards the end, I just like the male police officer is acting in such a weirdly hostile way for like no reason, really. And then the roommate as well, and all that stuff is just like I don't know. It's just kind of predictable, and once you realize what the premise is, yeah, it's not that great. I think Peter Capaldi does a really good job, though, as always. I mean, you could give him a pretty bad script and he'd do a good job. I think he's one of those kind of actors. But it just falls into that category of like instantly forgettable episodes for me. There's nothing about it that really stuck with me at all. So I'm also at 2.5 out of 5. I don't think it's bad. There are definitely worse episodes in the series. There were worse episodes last season. There were worse episodes the season before. But not much to say about it. It's just, it's there. It exists. I watched it. I can say that for sure.
Well, that's fair. I'm lining up with Andrew here. I have Bête Noir. I like how Andrew said this is an episode and an exploration of gaslighting, but also, as he mentioned, it goes completely off the rails. It's about food, or at least takes place in a food company. I wish there were a little bit more food metaphors in this episode. There's a little scene about with like the chocolate tasting where you're introduced to Verity. But this lady, Maria, is an R&D food scientist. And when an old classmate appears out of nowhere, things start to go awry. Verity is a classmate, as I mentioned before. She seems innocent at first, and it leads you to believe that maybe she is just a troubled woman whose past was complicated due to bullying, and you kind of suspect that Maria was one of the causes of her complicated childhood. At first, I was on her side, but then she starts exhibiting toxic behavior. I really like the scene with the milk. She was just completely shameless in that scene. And without spoiling, the ending of this episode is just bonkers. In a show where you expect some intelligence and technology, this particular tech is just out there. Like you push a button and anything can happen. I don't know. While I appreciate the first and second act, the third act was just a little bit too much for me. I do like that there's two versions of this episode with Barney's kind of thing. My episode that I watched, I believe, was Barney's being the real chain restaurant. You'll know what I'm talking about if you see the episode. It's a neat Mandela effect type thing going on, but I'm also with Andrew. I'm going 2.5 stars. I really hated the ending. It wasn't for me.
Well, we've lined up so far. We'll see how that can continue. For my fifth spot, I'm going with the one that Tom mentioned, Plaything. And right away, this was a grittier episode on like a visual and storytelling level. Like, man gets himself arrested, is discovered wanted for a murder, he's being interrogated. And then we go back to his younger self, like an introverted, more withdrawn programmer who gets like introduced to this game of little critters, take on a life of their own. Through hallucinogens, he starts to communicate with them and goes to extreme lengths to nurture that relationship. We've got like this in media res framing device where we start well into the story and then go through it that way. It's something I'm a little bit ambivalent about, that format in general, but I get why they do it here. I like the retro video game aspect. That's really cool. Bit of a love letter to that era of game design with like the typical Black Mirror darkness on top. We get the character from Bandersnatch showing up here, also very cool. Easter egg thing there. And like the ending goes big, like where like a plan is set in motion, leaves us a bit hanging for what it really means for like humanity from there. I actually like the open-endedness of that. The final shot gives us like just enough to, take a position on it without, having all the answers. But like Tom said, like some of the characterizations were a little bit over the top, and I wasn't 100% sure what they were going for, like with the bad cop in the interrogation and everything like that. Overall, it's a pretty dark and gritty, grimy episode. Not among my favorites. I liked it. I think it's like fairly solid, but it's definitely not one of the more memorable ones for me. It's kind of teetering on 3.5 on this one.
Well, we're not too far off. Bête Noire is my number five, and I don't know. I feel a bit disappointed with this one more so than any other episode because, sort of like what Clay was saying, the first two acts are actually really promising, and create this like real anxiety. I think the workplace of like a chocolate manufacturer is such a unique setting for a Black Mirror episode, which I think also kind of intrigued me. It's like a completely different kind of world than what we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing like hackers and programmers and like all this like tech-based stuff, and this felt more organic and set in the real world, which was cool. Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of it is hinging on that building suspense and building tension with Verity. And while there are some cool moments in resolving some things, the actual answer you get at the end, I think, is deeply unsatisfying. It's almost like they wrote themselves into a corner and then had to figure it out. Like it doesn't feel like it was organically planned from the start. But the reason I put it above Plaything is because I think it has quite a few sort of standout moments. Like Clay was saying, the moment with the milk is really, really fun. And all the Mandela effect moments I thought were really, really cool and just like something new that we've not really seen. That's like, messing with your mind, but you're sort of in the shoes of the main character as well. And you're like, no, 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 she is right. She is right. And it really, even though she's not the most likable character, it puts you on her side pretty well. But yeah, the final like whatever it is, 15 to 20 minutes, really disappointing because it was an episode with a lot of promise. And I still think it's enough to get to 3 stars for me based on the general vibe of the episode. I do like, and like I said, the setting was really cool to see. But yeah, I can see why this one and another one, which I don't necessarily agree with as much, are seen as the two worst episodes of the season. I think Plaything is as well. It's kind of like you got the three that people really like and the three that people don't like as much, and it mostly makes sense for 2 out of 3 of them.
Very nice. I'm talking about a different episode, something you guys haven't touched on yet. My next number five is Common People. Call me crazy, but I easily think that this is the darkest episode of the season. It stars the incredible Rashida Jones, who I really like. I like that she's venturing into these serious roles. You get her in the first episode of Silo, so she's kind of back in this. She's not playing a comedian, but she's a school teacher and succumbs to severe illness, likely cancer. While she's in the hospital, the doctor tells her husband that there's a way to revive her, but you must access a subscription type service in order to keep her alive. There's dark moments here that may seem silly on the surface. For example, the subscription allows for Rashida Jones to live, but it's confined to only their location. If she wants to venture out of the city, they have to upgrade the subscription, which costs more money. And then things start to get crazy, like she starts advertising certain items because they're subscribed to a lower tier subscription service. And it's called Common People because these people cannot afford higher tier subscriptions. So the husband starts taking up different jobs, which I find very unsettling. And the ending is just a gut punch tragedy. It's both my favorite thing about this episode, but it's also my least favorite thing. It did give me a visceral reaction while watching it, but I just had issues with the execution. I'm going 3 stars for this one.
Yeah, my biggest disappointment with that one was we didn't get the needle drop for Pulp for Common People. Um, but that is my number four, actually. I like it, like all the rest of these episodes, I really like a lot, so I'll have things to say. Mostly positive from here. I think Common People feels a little bit more like an early days Black Mirror episode. It's a little bit more low budget in a sense, even though you have like, some great cast, great known cast. Just the more straightforward premise, understated setting, the palpable sense of dread throughout its runtime. This one's like a fairly easy theme to sum up, and I think as a commentary we did need on Black Mirror at some point, basically positing what if predatory subscription models were applied to human life. And so, like Clay said, you have this woman undergoes life-saving surgery, but at the cost of like basically tethering her to this expensive service. She sleeps longer. She's limited by geography. The starter package introduces advertising, basically taking what we see in today with certain things like games and streaming and stuff, and just taking it to the extreme situations. There's a bit of a marital strain that happens, and the lengths that her husband will go to keep paying the bills. It's a really sad and dark story with parallels we recognize as familiar in these other areas of life today. Not a fun watch, but I think outside of some initial humor with the ads, but in general, I do think it's kind of like a classic, solid Black Mirror story with a topic that they really needed to tackle. So I'm gonna go up to 4 out of 5 for this one.
Andrew is probably the biggest Black Mirror fan out of the three of us. I think that's fair to say. But our lists are looking pretty similar so far because Common People is also my number four. I don't think people are going to be very happy about that none of us have it in the top three. I feel like it's been the most talked about episode, mostly positively. Similar critique to Plaything for me here, where I think more so this one out of all of them. I know you used it as a positive that it reminds you of classic Black Mirror, but I couldn't get like Be Right Back out of my head. It's like very reminiscent of that episode in a lot of ways. Not necessarily in plot, but in terms of like themes and the feel of the episode. And I don't think it's as good as Be Right Back. I mean, Clay mentioned Rashida Jones, but you've also got Chris O'Dowd in the lead role, both of which are primarily comedy actors, going into one of the most depressing things I've ever seen, which is really cool. Chris O'Dowd, I think, was fantastic in this episode, as was Rashida Jones. They do really well to sell the chemistry with very limited screen time before things start going wrong. I did really enjoy the dark humor. Definitely my favorite part of the episode, like the talking to the kids and like recommending the Christian service. So funny. Like such a dark, twisted sense of humor, but really works. Yeah, it's got the problem that I find with a lot of Black Mirror episodes where they're just too long. And a story that could have been 45 minutes is stretched out. I think this one's like 75 minutes or something like that. It's almost feature length. And I, it's something that hampers quite a few episodes of Black Mirror, I think, where, I'm a massive Inside Number Nine guy, and every single episode is a tight 30 minutes, and they just nail it with that limited amount of time. And it's almost a constraint that I think helps their writing. Whereas with Black Mirror, because they can make episodes as long as they can, it's almost as if they just make them longer, and they just explore more and more things. I get, you're trying to explore as much as you can while you're trying to tackle this topic. But for me, I wasn't as emotionally engrossed as I think it would have needed me to be for it to really hit. It did feel a little bit misery porny from time to time. Like just things kept going wrong and everyone's having a terrible time and isn't life so horrible, and there's room for that at times, but even for Black Mirror standards it was so bleak. So I'm kind of with Clay in that sense, where the gut punch ending is effective, but it almost kind of feels like it's punishing the audience and like, here's what's going to happen if you're not careful. But yeah, I think overall, good episode. I'm going as a 3.5. I think, again, to just piggyback off what other people have said, Andrew made a really good point about how interesting a concept it is to almost have a streaming service be transmitted onto like human life. And, you know, it's sort of Charlie Brooker again poking fun at how flawed a model Netflix is whilst producing one of Netflix's most popular shows for the second season in a row. Quite amusing. But yeah, 3.5 out of 5. I think it's good. I think people are going a little bit too crazy for it online, but yeah, it's solid. Just watch Be Right Back instead, though, if you've got a choice between the two.
Tracy Ellis Ross is also in that episode, and she's also a comedy actress. She does really good. And the next one is same bottom three. I have Playthings. I really like self-contained thrillers, and this is one of them. It's centered around a murder suspect and follows two police officers interrogating the suspect. Bounces back from the late 90s to present day. Peter Capaldi is great here, playing the late Cameron Walker, who was once a programmer. He gets his hands on a game called Thronglets, and he becomes deeply attached to the game and feels like he can communicate to the Animal Crossing like characters in the game using LSD. He goes so far as murdering an individual who doesn't treat the animals in the game with respect. Another bonkers ending here, but unlike my previous submission, I actually kind of respect this ending. It took me in for a good ride. It reminded me of an episode from last season where you don't know if the protagonist is being truthful to their delusions or not. I'm talking about the episode with the girl who communicates with the demon, and at the end, people are wondering, "Oh, is the apocalypse really going to happen?" And then it does. Um, a lot of people put this on the worst list, and that kind of surprises me. But I really enjoyed this one. Netflix has a tie-in game to this episode apparently too. Like you can play the Thronglets game on their app. I haven't played it yet, but strong 3.5 stars. I really liked it, but it's fair that we all have the same bottom three, I think.
Nice. Yeah. So I feel like for the next one, I don't know if this is a controversial number three. I'm going with USS Callister into Infinity. And they had an undertaking here to justify like making basically a movie-length sequel to the previous USS Callister episode. And I think they really delivered on that. Like in the first one, I'm not as into like the sci-fi fantasy theming. That's just a personal thing for me, as I am like the more grounded kind of sci-fi concepts. There is a lot of like mumbo jumbo here that we have to roll with, but that's part of what this story is and the works that it's inspired from as well. And it being like a virtual reality helps kind of give it that framework that kind of fits more with what I like. There's a lot going on in this episode. I don't think you could sum it all up, but balances being both like a corporate thriller and a body swap comedy somehow. Offers like chilling character studies, but also like action adventure in space. We're never really lingering on one of these things or the other for too long, which kind of helps us make this a really like just consistently entertaining ride and avoids just being like a Guardians of the Galaxy romp or something. And it's nice to see the cast like reprise their roles and pick up pretty much where things left off. It really felt like if you watch these two together, you just get one really cool long like miniseries almost. Special mention to Jimmy Simpson, who I think is really hilarious as like the opportunistic, incompetent CEO. So I had a really good time with this. It's not 100% in my wheelhouse in terms of theming, but I think they really delivered on what they were trying to do here. So this one also gets a 4 out of 5.
Andrew keeps stealing my points. My number three is also USS Callister into Infinity. This is crazy. Line up so well. I gotta agree with Jimmy Simpson. He was the highlight of this episode for me, not just as the sort of the clownish, crazy coke addict question mark CEO, but also in all his different roles as like the fake version, like with the big beard and everything. Ah, he plays evil, he plays funny, he plays likable, he plays all these things so well. Kristen Milioti as well. She's on a real hot streak at the moment, and it's cool to see her again. Um, the original I did really like. I think what's missing here is that creepiness that you get from Jesse Plemons' character, which I think is really what sold the original for me, is that unease and that exploitative nature of it, which you kind of get a bit with Walton, with Jimmy Simpson's character once he tries to like, take control and gets a bit more aggressive inside the game world. But I like that framing of almost like abducting copies of people, and I think this feels more like a sci-fi adventure, whereas the last episode was a sci-fi adventure which was all a ruse and a disguise so that this guy could like do this horrible stuff, which was what was so impactful about it. And I think that's where it falls short a little bit. But for an hour and a half episode, it was pretty entertaining all the way throughout. Took some cool twists and turns. Does very much feel reminiscent of Guardians of the Galaxy, and that style of writing. What's it called? Firefly. That all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think there's a real energy in the cast, which I think elevates what I think is an okay script into being a good episode. So I'm still at 3.5 out of 5 for my number three, USS Callister into Infinity.
This is surprising because that is also my number three. Uh, People are going to be upset that this isn't in our top two, but I will say this is my most anticipated episode of this season. I was really curious how they would make a sequel to this one. It picks up from the last episode where Jesse Plemons made clones of his coworkers to give him a virtual space to control them through a video game. So these people, led by Kristen Milotti, are trapped in this virtual space, stealing game credits, presumably for their survival. She's great in this. It takes a while to get used to in the first act, but by act two, I was really hooked. Like you guys said, Jimmy Simpson is a new antagonist here. He's the CEO of this game, and he has some funny scenes. I like how he doesn't have any clue on how the game works. So he calls like one of his tech workers and asks him the most basic questions. Parts of this episode reminds me of Severance. Like you have the clone version of yourself, and then you have the real you on the outside. And a lot of people may harp on the ending, but I really love it. Without spoiling, it's basically the movie Inside Out. This episode kept me engaged from start to finish. Do I like it as good as the first one? No. I agree with Tom. I really like Jesse Plemons' character and how he kind of made the first one work. But all the cast members understood the assignment and they delivered here. I'm going 4 stars. So out of 3.5 territory.
I just want to say as well, like there's kind of a trend with this season where, although it's odd that this is the one that's got the big, maybe not big, but positive critical response, and it's the one that's relied the most on callbacks and going back rather than looking forward. Because obviously you got Will Poulter reprising his role, you got a whole sequel episode, pretty much every episode except for one, which I've not talked about yet, feels reminiscent of a specific older Black Mirror episode. So yeah, it's odd. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree, but I think it's interesting that the season where they start almost going in on nostalgia or like callbacks or self-indulgence, whatever you want to call it, is the one that critics have responded the best to since like season 4. Interesting.
I agree. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to them doing something new in the future. Especially now that, AI is running the world right now. There's a lot of interesting things they can do that isn't rehashing old ideas. Cool.
So, my number two, we're still holding out hope for a trifecta. We'll see if that happens. I'm going with Hotel Reverie, and I was really pleasantly surprised by this one. Some people seem to describe this as a bit of like a lesser San Junipero. I can see the comparison, but I think it brings some unique qualities on the table in its own right, and basically you have this story that centers on this new technology, allows performers to inhabit an AI simulation centered on like an existing property, in this case, a classic Hollywood romance movie that they plan to reboot. And looking for something different, they get this movie star, Brandy Friday, interested in playing the male lead, making for a very entertaining like race and gender swap that the AI characters simply just kind of accept. And things get quickly complicated as the story goes awry. She risks getting stuck there, while also becoming, attached to the female lead of the story. And well, first off, they really do a phenomenal job at replicating the feel and style of the 1940s cinema. The whole episode looks very beautiful all around, and the attention to detail is just next level. It's a longer episode, another one that's like almost a movie, but it's a great balance of tones overall. You get a little bit of the comedy and like the fish out of the water scenarios, the real world tech shenanigans going on, kind of behind the scenes are also a lot of fun. But you also get some real heart in the connection between the two leads. Emma Corrin as the AI leading lady. Oh, real standout there. Not sure I've ever seen a more convincing portrayal of that time period of a performance before. It really brings the story together. I think if you had someone who didn't quite nail the tone, a lot of this completely falls apart, but she really does it. I was quite satisfied with the note they leave it on. It's like I don't want to spoil it entirely, but uh, it's always nice when Black Mirror has a little bit of an optimistic element infused in it as well. And it works in this story where you actually have characters like that you're rooting for, and there's some commentary on like you know uh, that time period in which public figures simply had to kind of hide who they were. So you get a little bit of that too. Um, I just thought this was a really beautiful episode, ambitious. Um, Everything about it looks great, and the story is quite good as well. So yeah, this one's another 4 out of 5. But considering like this is like the lowest rated one on IMDb, I don't know. I gotta say, I feel really differently about this one than what most of the audience seems to.
I think I might be wrong. I think it's the fourth lowest rated episode of Black Mirror. It's crazy. I think it's only like Maisie Day, the Waldo moment, and I can't remember
Miley
the other one.
Cyrus, Miley
Oh yeah,
Cyrus.
it'd probably be that one. Yeah, yeah. Um, which is crazy, crazy. Um, it is my number two as well. We are officially the biggest Hotel Reverie fan club on the internet. I kind of scoured through reviews to see why people didn't like this. And there were two main points that I took from them. And I don't really agree with either of them. But at least I understand what why people don't like it. It doesn't mean they're right. The first one Andrew mentioned that it's a copy of San Junipero, which if you consider doing another lesbian romance copying another episode, I guess you also have like that it's sort of a fictional reality, but it's so different in terms of the actual framing device. And also in San Junipero, it's a twist. In this, it's like the main, I guess spoilers for San Junipero, but you should have watched it by now. In this, it's like the main crux of the story, and it's almost that the romance is the twist rather than the framing device, you know? And the other main critique I saw was Issa Rae's performance, which I don't necessarily understand. I mean, Emma Corrin is the standout in the episode, that's for sure. But Issa Rae does a really good job. She carries this like almost like a down to earth quality, which I really liked. You know, you expect this like big shot actress to come in and like own the place, but I like that she's just kind of normal. She's just like a pretty down to earth, normal person, and a really good eyes in character for the audience. Yeah, on a technical level, it is an absolute masterpiece. I think there's some contrivances here and there, and there are a couple characters. Weirdly, Issa Rae is the one that has got the hate, but I think Aquafina and Harriet Walter annoyed me more than her. Like when it cuts back to the control room and then some of that dialogue where it's like I don't know, it's like emotions at critical level. It's like kind of really corny, but I think it's almost intentional. But yeah, that was like the one aspect was when it would like cut back to the control room, and there were some nice moments there. But I think the most impressive thing about the episode is that they like scripted an entire 40s movie because the episode almost does it like in real time, which is really cool, really justifies the length of the episode in that way. Another one that's I think 75 minutes or so. So that was really cool because you can see the timer on the screen and that it's clearly been sort of set up. So they've had to script a film and then almost script the way it goes wrong, which is so cool. Such attention to detail. I don't know why people don't like this one as much as we do. I think I can kind of see again how it's reminiscent of older episodes, but this is if this is a copy of San Junipero and Common People is not a copy of Be Right Back, I don't know what people are watching, but yeah, 4 out of 5 stars for me. I think it's very good, and yeah, one of the two episodes from this season that I will probably end up rewatching. The others, maybe not, but these top two are pretty strong.
Nice, nice. I we don't have a trifecta. My number two is Eulogy. It is a great story of love that was lost. I know, I know. Led by Paul Giamatti. He's giving it his all here. When an old fling of his suddenly passes, he's asked to give memories of the girl because of her funeral. And through technology, he is able to recall memories through photographs of this girl who used to be his partner. The technology here isn't like a malevolent force. It's rather a useful tool and is significant to the heart of this episode. Through the use of a guide, Paul is able to recall memories of his young love, or rather, the one that got away. It turns into a sad story of what could have been. And I think Giamatti truly delivers here, and there's fantastic monologues, and there's a interesting little twist too. It benefits greatly through its enclosed setting, and there's good production design here too, as Paul lives his past life through photographs. I like how some of the photographs that he has, he's literally scratched out. I believe her name is Carol, her face, and yeah, it's really he's able to let go and realize what has happened to his past love has happened, and there isn't any going back now. And he finds closure through the help of this guide, and he's able to channel his grief in a really relatable manner. There's one scene in here towards the end that kind of made me cry. It's the kind of performance I love to see from Mr. Giamatti. And I hope he does more roles like this. I'm going 4.5 stars.
Very nice. And that leaves me with just my number one, which is also Eulogy. And I usually do this thing where I run through the episodes in kind of reverse order of how audiences seem to be responding to them. So the first one I saw was Hotel Reverie, and it was my number two. The last one I saw was Eulogy, my favorite. So it might have helped my appreciation of the season to have those two kind of on each end to have to. But it was a beautiful note to leave the season on. Black Mirror has this reputation, deservedly so, for like its dark portrayals of humanity through technology. So it's really satisfying when you get one that kind of goes the other way. The technology is basically altruistic here, and you get this emotional human story that leaves kind of more of like a positive note, but bittersweet at the same time because it is about some very sad stuff. As Clay mentioned, Paul Giamatti plays this man who has an old flame who passed away. With the help from the AI who goes down memory lane, we learn piece by piece what happened in the relationship, leading to like a falling out and whatnot. There's a good lesson here in how we spend so much of our time focusing on our own point of view of things that we might miss like the struggles and insecurities that others might be going through also. And Paul Giamatti always does great work. This is no exception. Don't think you could ask for like a better choice for the lead here. This is the episode I'll probably be coming back to the most as well. The reviews we get are like the reveals are like tasteful, classy, feel appropriate to the story being told. And yet, even with all that said, I almost feel like there was perhaps even more potential here. It's my favorite episode of the season. I'm giving it a 4.5, but I'm not even sure what it would be. But I think there's really something to this idea that could really make it right up there with one of my all-time favorite, uh, not just Black Mirror episodes, but in general. I think it teases us with something that's really humanist and that touches on those true things about ourselves and everything. But yeah, I'm going a 4.5 out of this. This is my favorite of the season. Uh, it would definitely be top 10. Maybe you could sneak into the top 5 as well of the series. I think it's a great episode.
Also, my number one. Mine and Andrew's lists, apart from the bottom two being flipped, were exactly the same. Crazy. Um, yeah, so Eulogy. For me, this is a top five Black Mirror episode of all time. So good. Uh, Easily the best episode of the season for me. Not even remotely close. As much as I did enjoy Hotel Reverie, it just so tight and well constructed, doesn't waste a single scene. Every single scene, even the first time, obviously I only watched it once, but going through it, there was some scenes where I was like, this like subplot where she's like being rude to him, and then spoilers, the twist that comes of who she is, which I guess I don't have to say, but you guys know what I mean. Suddenly, like, oh, okay, oh, I get it now. Oh no, pain. So yeah, I mean the final scene is incredible, so good. And I think Black Mirror, one thing it has lost a tiny bit, it's not gone completely, but it used to bring out some powerhouse performances. I'm talking Daniel Kaluuya in what was it, 3 million merits, 13 million merits, whatever it was. Toby Kebbell in The Entire History of You, John Hamm and Rafe Spall in White Christmas. And then I think the episode just got more concept driven and just gave less time for actors to really sink their teeth into some deep dark scenes. And that's what Paul Giamatti gets to do here, and it is one of, if not the best performances in all of Black Mirror. It is incredible. So much range. He's kind of a dick. He's doing his, Paul Giamatti curmudgeon thing that he always does, but it feels maybe a little bit more nuanced than it does in like the Alexander Payne movies he's done. Even though I do love those movies, this feels like a step into a further level of pathos and a bit less of that sort of self-pitying. It's a bit more self-critical, this character, I think, which is really interesting underneath those layers of denial and all that kind of stuff. I agree with Andrew. The concept of the episode is fantastic, and again, much like Hotel Reverie, the visuals, the stylistic choice to have him enter the photographs, oh, perfection. It's a high 4.5 out of 5. I can't quite get to 5. I kind of see where I'm just coming from. I hadn't really thought about it, but it does feel like maybe there's a little bit more of a level to reach. But yeah, sticking with a 4.5 for Eulogy.
Yeah, he's gonna get an Emmy. He's good. I think this is my favorite performance of him. But he's really good in Sideways too. Uh, so my number one, yeah, Hotel Reverie. I found this episode to be the most engaging, fun, and funny, heart-wrenching, and creative. Issa Rae shines here as an actress who's looking for a role that is something new. She gets cast in the movie Hotel Reverie, It was initially a male lead, but the new movie is reimagined with a female lead, which Issa Rae takes on. She's able to get transformed into the play, however, she's unprepared. I really like the scene where things start to go off the rails when she doesn't know how to play piano, so she starts playing chopsticks. And and if Issa Rae doesn't make it to the end of the movie, she's going to be trapped into this film forever. I thought Aquafina was okay, kind of guiding her through this. Emma Corrin, though, she steals the show. She's from The Crown, and I've always loved her. Um, Issa Rae and her have great chemistry. They get stuck frozen in time and fall in love. Um, it's very San Junipero, but it's chock full of funny moments as Issa navigates her way through this film. She gets lost in her character and ends up screwing the story, though. Issa's performance is interesting. I think at times she can be a little bit wooden or stale, but I think that's how the character was written, and I think it works. Corin and Issa, fantastic chemistry. It's both heartwarming and funny to watch them on screen. There's a tongue-in-cheek kind of tone to this episode that I love, and it can be a little bit campy at times, so that's probably why it's my favorite. I like the ending as well. So it is another 4.5 stars for me. My number one and two could probably be flipped, but yeah, I enjoyed it.
Well,
In a
we had
way, I'm
enough
glad.
consensus for one day as
Yeah,
it
I was
is.
gonna
So
say I'm glad there wasn't a trifecta in one way because it's nice
Yeah.
to have some variety, or else we may as well just had one of us come on here and read our list.
Um, yeah, good job, guys. I think all in all our lists were pretty much almost the same, but there was some variety, like you said. So any closing thoughts?
I think Black Mirror as a show, since it's gone to Netflix, has declined in quality for me.
Yeah.
That's just the nature of it. But every single season, except what was it, season five, where there was only 3 episodes anyway, you get at least one episode that blows you away. So it is worth sticking with it. I think people worried with season five that it's kind of lost its edge, but I think the last 2 seasons, even though there have been some bumps, have proven that Charlie Brooker has still got something there. Um, Even if I think the overall level of the show is now like a probably baseline average 3.5 out of 5 every season.
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like with like the anthology format, you're always going to get misses, and hopefully you continue to get the hits. Black Mirror still does that. Um, I think it's overall for me, it's always going to be in my wheelhouse. This kind of style, like these kind of self-contained like mini movies. Um, it's like the closest thing we have to the Twilight Zone today, certainly more so than the Twilight Zone reboot was. Um, and I'll watch another season whenever it comes out, and hope that it continues to deliver, at its best, something that you can really, really latch on to and want to return to.
Well, we're 7 seasons in, and I hope it doesn't go on forever. I think 10 seasons would be a good number to stop at, personally. I hope they continue to move forward. I hope they don't rehash any more old ideas because the best episodes are the best episodes. Let's leave it at that. We don't need another San Junipero or another Be Right Back. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything. Thank you guys for being on the show, and we'll probably see you next year whenever season 8 comes out, if it takes a year.
Maybe 2 years with
I was I was
how
gonna
quickly the
say
industry
very
works now.
wishful thinking.
Yeah, could be 3. There's been some
Yeah, it could be for.
gaps.
I think between what was it, between 4 and 5, there was like a good 5 years or something.
Oh yeah, yeah. Which was a shame because 5 only had 3 episodes. But
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys. We'll catch you later. Let us know in the comments what you think about season 7 and yeah, type it out. Take care.